Miami Dolphins have done it. For the first time since 2022, the Miami Dolphins have finally beaten the Buffalo Bills. It feels amazing. It feels like just like air, like rocks off my chest. I can breathe again, knowing that's no longer the case, that we're getting stomped by the Bills every single year. And again, two matchups for the Miami Dolphins specifically that they really could have gone 2-0 against the Bills this year. Still 3-7 for the year, but what does that win mean? We're going to go into the win against Buffalo from that Sunday, and then the future matchup, early matchup here in the States, but over there in España, in Spain, taking on the Washington Commanders, dealing with their own injury woes, and maybe even a team on the downward spiral, maybe that could push the Dolphins ahead. Talk about that. Brian Daboll as well fired for the Giants. That's I don't even know what to even think about that for New York. And what he was wearing today, seen by TMZ, it would shock a lot of people, especially those in the college football world. But again, Dolphins, Bills, Dolphin Commanders, future of this season, plus McDaniel and Brian Daboll and the Giants. We'll get into it here on Sideline. So the Miami Dolphins this season have been on an abysmal run of luck. Unlucky one-possession games. Unlucky when you have a game you should be winning, whether that be a game blown out against Cleveland, or whether that be, one play away from beating out the Chargers at home, or having a 17-0 lead disappear against the Carolina Panthers on the road. It just seems like every single season there is some reason that the Dolphins are going to lose. And for basically this season alone, it seems like every single game, there's a reason why the Dolphins were going to lose. There's only been 2 games that we can say otherwise. That is the Atlanta game, where the Dolphins shut them out in every single facet of the game. And this Bills game we saw Sunday. Believe it or not, Anthony Weaver and the defense responded in a big way. 30-13, Miami on top of the Buffalo Bills, their first win against Buffalo since, again, 2022. And that was a game that was at home as well. That was, I don't know if a lot of people remember, but Josh Allen, the Bills, trying to drive down on the field on their Miami Dolphins side of the field. And, they're trying to get the clock going, and they able to unsnap the ball. And, the entire defense is already celebrating with seconds left. And the OC at the time for the Buffalo Bills, which I can't remember his name, but I definitely remember the reaction on his face, slamming the playbook on the glass in pure frustration until someone had to cover away the camera. That was probably one of the best Dolphin moments I had with Tua's tenure. But speaking of Tua's tenure, this is actually the first ever time that Tua goes against the Bills, in my recollection at least. No sacks. No sacks allowed at all from this young O-line. I think that's probably one of the biggest standpoints from this game that not a lot of people talk about. The offensive line, Patrick Paul and Jonah, the pass rushers on Buffalo between Joey Bosa and then, of course, Rosu, who, was a South Florida guy that was having issues in the heat, which I didn't really believe. They showed up. They showed up in bunches. They were really out there in protection and was perfectly fine with it. Now, of course, the run game itself for the Miami Dolphins as well, there was some slick back stuff where, loss of yards behind the line of scrimmage. Like Joey Bosa did get active in that. But Devon Achane definitely pushed through. I mean, let's just look at the stats right now. Again, we have 2 rushing touchdowns. One of them a 59-yarder to the house when it was 16-0. The Dolphins basically blowing out the entire first half. Actually, the first time that the Bills got shut out in the first half in over 2 years. Tells you what type of game this is. Overall, great game. Devon Achane, 174 yards rushing. And on top of that, he also, in a sense of receiving, he ended up with 51 yards through the air. That's over 200 scrimmage yards. I mean, imagine if we've even traded this guy during the trade deadline, where this team would be at. Because Jalen Wright, in his own right, no pun intended, really good athlete, speedster, not as similar to Devon, but, from the running game besides Achane, Jalen Wright had 5 attempts, 17 yards. You did not see any bit of Ollie Gordon in this game. And I'm not even complaining about that, because it wasn't like opportunities where, like, okay, we're it's first and goal. we're real close. Let's try to get a first. Let's try to go out of our way to get the touchdown 1 yard away. Those situations like that. And I apologize. I got it's cold in South Florida, so my sinuses and a little bit of like that, which I was expecting Miami to be very cold over the weekend. Still 70, 80 degrees. Nothing crazy. Good football weather. It wasn't too bad for the Buffalo Bills, Miami Dolphins game. But either way, despite my sinuses, nothing was being stuffed. Devon Achane, 174 yards rushing. Overall, team 197 yards rushing. Even Alec Ingold getting into it. And speaking of Alec Ingold, there was a weird start to this game. Again, start of the game, there was already a penalty. I think it was false start or something like that against Alec Ingold. Ingold's in disbelief. And then something additional to that happened where Mike McDaniel had to call a timeout just to understand the rules, apparently, according to what he said from Mediaville, because he didn't want to get fined in the NFL, talking against the officials. And throughout the game, McDaniel definitely vocal against the officials. There's even a point where they have kind of of course, muted, but they had him talking about stop giving them the game. So Mike McDaniel was on a 10. This is probably the most active I've seen Mike McDaniel on a sideline in his entire 4 years with the Dolphins throughout this year, whether that be the Cleveland Browns game of pure disgust or in this game, bumping with Anthony Weaver, high-fiving around, yelling out of the top of his head to officials. I like to see that activity out of him. I love to see that. And a big part of that was probably just because of what the defense was able to do against Josh Allen. Josh Allen in this one, and not a lot of people are like, oh, this is the worst Josh Allen game ever. If I told you that a quarterback had 306 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, and of course 1 interception, would you say that's the worst game? Would you say, I don't really believe so. I would definitely have to double check his entire career chart, which I'm not going to do in this case. But for Josh Allen, we're talking about a QBR rating of 28.7. So down in the dumps low. And why is that? Well, besides the interception, Josh Allen also fumbled the ball trying to get a first down on a run, which he was able to do. And on top of that, he also was joined in with James Cook, who James Cook also fumbled the ball, or Jordan Brooks, and Jordan Brooks was everywhere in this game with Minka Fitzpatrick. Jordan Brooks punches the ball out of James Cook's glove, and the ball goes rolling around, gets picked up by Brent, and the quarterback Brent, hell of a game. And Josh Allen just couldn't find any luck. The Bills' offense couldn't find any luck. They got all the way down to the red zone for the first time in the entire game, and they got intercepted. And you follow that by a fumble and a fumble, and it's like the Dolphins' defense answering every single time. Now, in the third quarter, the Bills finally did answer with their own touchdown. A little bit too late, in my honest opinion. 2-point conversion. It stopped right there at the 1 yard line. Receiver had it right there. Minka Fitzpatrick, who was also on 10s, jams the guy right there at the line. It was the best secondary performance, because I'm not going to say best defensive performance, I would have to say. Maybe that goes to the Atlanta game or whatnot. But this was the best defensive in the secondary performance. The secondary was lights out in the game that they needed to be against Josh Allen. And also on top of that, James Cook only 53 yards of rushing. No touchdowns in this one. Probably the first time I've seen him not get a touchdown in a game. That is easy free money. Usually. Easy free money. And also on top of the injuries throughout this year, for Buffalo, a lot of that really definitely showed. Dalton Kincaid got actually injured with a hamstring injury in this game, specifically midway through the third. Only 2 catches, but 37 yards. There was 2 back-to-back 20, 15-plus yard catches that he had against the Miami Dolphins. Dolphins got lucky with him getting injured. Jackson Hayes, though, the backup tight end with his own touchdown. His only catch is the touchdown, 26-yard touchdown, and the only touchdown that the Bills were able to – well, apologies, not the only touchdown the Bills were able to get. We also had a Keon Coleman touchdown down the line. But overall, great job by the Dolphins defense. And we talked about a little about Josh Allen kind of struggling, the defense answering that wave. How about Tua Tagovailoa? Opening up the game, the first drive of the game, throws a pick. Again, with this, how about Tua Tagovailoa pass where it's a deep ball, over 30 yards, it's double coverage, you're going to find water, find a hill, and he just gets picked off in a bad Bad mental mistake, in my opinion. But then he answers back. Key third down conversions, passes. We're not talking like check down stuff. We're not talking like he's just like, oh, well, the guy's right there. We get 2 yards here, we get a 4 yards here. No, I mean, he's taking his time in the pocket. There are a lot of times the bubble screens. Devon Achane, and we talk about Devon Achane overall scrimmage yards, over 200 overall scrimmage yards from running and passing. This man, Tua Tagovailoa, in the pocket, I believe in the first quarter, waited in the line. Did not look like he got pressured. In most cases, especially when you go against the Buffalo Bills pass rush, didn't even to take the sack. Went down early. He stayed in the pocket, analyzed what he could, and was able to find Devon Achane to get a lot of yards. A lot of those plays resulting in 14 yards, first downs, 20 yards. And in some cases for Tua Tagovailoa, who ended up with 2 touchdowns, also threw 2 picks. So 2-2 ratio, but 173 yards. QBR rating of 61, not his best game, obviously, but there were some dots in this one. The biggest one, in my honest opinion, out of this would have to be the Jalen Waddle pass. Let me go back to that real quick, give the details. Jalen Waddle, 38-yard passing touchdown, vertical route, beats a guy, and Tua just drops a dot right in his breadbasket. That's the type of thing that we want to see out of Tua Tagovailoa. Those are the deep balls that, unfortunately, he's going to throw a lot more picks throughout this year for, but that's the type of aggression you want to see out of your quarterback, especially for the Miami Dolphins. And they look great throughout this one. Early on, Malik Washington, 9-yard touchdown pass from Tua Tagovailoa, a play that was, well, actually, let me backtrack that. An overall series that was nearly, 7.5 minutes, 12 plays, 92 yards. And they're jumping on clock here. The touchdown for Waddle, that was 3 plays. Again, that was a back-to-back-to-back touchdown type of thing. Another one scoring for a field goal, 10 plays, 6 minutes for the Dolphins wasted. And the 2 Devon Achane touchdowns, as clutch as it is, and this is when we talk about answering the bell. Bills get their first touchdown of the game, 35-yarder to Coleman. Don't really get the 2-point conversion. Devon Achane goes to the house, 59 yards. Jackson Hayes, the 26-yard touchdown pass I told you about. He gets his touchdown, the backup tight end. Dolphins answer. Devon Achane, 35 yards to the house. The ability to answer back. We've yet to see that from the Miami Dolphins till now. And maybe it was because, maybe we had to see Chris Greer grow, right? We had to see him leave the facility. Maybe it's the Jalen Phillips knowing that he's not there. Maybe that added in more ability for guys to, get more reps, right? I mean, Zach Sealer had a sack in this one. Bradley Chubb had a sack in this one. All right. And we also saw Jordan Phillips, the Maryland rookie. He played pretty damn good. Him and Benito had some flag issues. He's been having that throughout the entire year for the pass rush and D-line. But they showcased themselves. And honestly, I really don't feel mad that the Dolphins got rid of Phillips for a 3rd-round pick. Not saying that we're not going to feel his impact. Obviously, Phillips is a great player. And Philadelphia definitely helped out a lot in their Monday night win against Green Bay. We'll go into that a little bit. That's low-scoring affair. But this Dolphins team, I think, just got a little better. I think the chemistry got a little better. And the win, 30-13, the locker room was a buzz, blazing. Willie Gay in a cart, surfing throughout the locker room. Mike McDaniel telling everyone, oh, I'm proud of you guys. But then the guys cheering in a whole 2-minute moment, or at least it feels like an eternity. You want that. You want that for your head coach. And even better yet, Mike McDaniel, returning the favor to Bills fans because, of course, for the Elbow Room in Fort Lauderdale, the world-renowned Elbow Room where the Florida Panthers have gone out of their way to get the Stanley Cup into the second balcony and pour onto fans champagne and beer. Well, the Bills, one day out of the whole year, make that into Bills Mafia territory. Bills fans packed the entire place for the Saturday and Sunday. And Mike McDaniel, who apparently, according to the media, lives around the area, and with AI being a real thing nowadays, it's a shame, according to Mike McDaniel. But the reports are, as promising as it is, it might be true. Mike McDaniel, on his way back to at least I guess his home after the game from the stadium, passed by the elbow room and just started eyeing fans out of the car. Just, arm out of the car in his little Rolls Royce thing or whatever he's driving, just going down A1A and just like, yeah, shades and all. Mind you, 3-7 head football coach in the NFL. So can't boast too much. But I mean, was Brian Flores ever doing that? Was Philbin ever doing that? Would Don Shula ever even do that? I don't know, because again, Don Shula, amazing coach. Not trying to compare the two, but this is probably the most cockiest coach I think the Dolphins ever had in their franchise, and I love it. I love it. So the Miami Dolphins again winning it 30-13. Their next matchup going to go against the Washington Commanders. First game ever played in Spain, I believe, too, as well. That's going to be in Madrid. I like the odds just because on paper, you look at the storylines. Commanders coming off a blowout loss against Seattle like 2 weeks ago. Lost Jaden Daniels for basically a year. Terry McLaurin, their number one wide receiver, not going to be active for this game, confirmed earlier today, this Tuesday. And Marcus Mariota and that team got blown out again. And Mariota's basically told me, like, hey, we don't think, we think we're like a much better team. We think that we're this, we think we're that, and we're just not that. I mean, that's basically the lines that you've talked about. That from a lot of people, people were basically telling the Washington Commanders that they were going to be a title runner in the NFC. They were going to be someone to look at, especially in the NFC East in their own division. And that's definitely flipped. That's definitely flipped over. Now you find this team 3-7, along with the Miami Dolphins. So 2 3-7 teams. Dolphins apparently a home game for them, which doesn't make any sense because, again, if you're away, just make it neutral. Why home and away stuff? Whatever jersey they want to choose. Now, if they go out of their way because the Dolphins have a chance to go with a throwback jersey for this game, that's kind of disgusting. They should have done the throwback jerseys for this Bills game, but they didn't do it. I don't know when they're going to do it. Hopefully, because they ain't even making a single announcement yet. And we're near Thanksgiving already, the 11th of November. And no throwback jersey, no white home, no 72 aqua, nothing yet. So that's a little concerning. But again, Dolphins right now in this game, favorites. 150 money line favorites, 2.5-point favorites. Probably the first game in a long time the Dolphins are seen as favorites. I mean, they weren't even favorites against Cleveland a few weeks back. I can't even tell you the last time they were favorites. Maybe the Jets game? Maybe. But besides that, this is a huge piece for the Dolphins. Right now, Commanders 1-4 on the road. Dolphins vice versa, 2-3 at home. Again, not a home game. So you got to look at that part too, the travel and everything like that. I like Miami in this game. I really do like Miami in this game. I think they're on a right roll at the right time. And I'm not saying that they're going to like push for a playoff piece. You look at this game, Commanders follow that by back at home against New Orleans. Dolphins, Jets, Dolphins on the road there. Steelers, Dolphins going to be on the road for a Monday night game. Bengals, Dolphins, that's Sunday night football against Cincinnati. That's going to be prime time. Buccaneers follow that. Pats follow that. Maybe the Dolphins could win against Washington. Could win against New Orleans. Could win against the Jets on the road, which wouldn't be too crazy of a surprise. But I feel like there will be a surprise game at some point this season. Maybe Monday Night Football, a little extra rest on a Monday. Maybe beat the Steelers, who just recently got themselves razor shaved against the Chargers on Sunday Night Football the other day. Maybe take advantage of the Bengals, who knows how they look like 4 or 5 weeks from now, obviously. But Joe Flacco, Joe Cool, not looking like the best guy at the option right now with Joe Burrow still out. And who knows? The Buccaneers and the Pats, maybe their playoff picture is already done. Maybe it's, let's just save guys at that point. Who knows? But you're talking about potentially the Dolphins can win 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. At least 4 games. 4 to 5 games. So let's say the Dolphins do get 7 to 8 wins at the end of the year. I predicted for them having at least 7 at the end of the year. So my prediction wouldn't be too off. And again, we talked about the same thing as well earlier this season, where they got their first win against the Jets, and we're like, oh, they could beat out the Panthers, they could beat out the Browns, they could beat out these teams, and they didn't even get close on some of these games. But a little different vibe now. They're pushing different. Locker room's different. And we're not just talking about guys, trying to protect their jobs. These are guys that are looking towards a future with, this Champ Kelly guy or whatever his name is, the new GM, interim GM that is. Are the Dolphins going to go outside of the building for a new GM? I doubt it. Stephen Ross, if you had Chris Grier there for over a decade in the franchise, 9 years as the GM for your team, and obviously years of mediocre competition and, from what we've seen, bad moves in the offseason, I kind of doubt he would go out of his way and be like, let's do an interview process. I think he's going to stay more in-house. He's more of an in-house guy. Like, he wants to give Mike McDaniel, according to reports, another chance at this basically for the future. So he'll probably be back next year. And for McDaniel's future, again, with this Bills game, there's plenty of season left. But this is an example of why you would keep Mike McDaniel. Perfect example. He's a big locker room guy, players coach. He's not going to be like, people talk about Brian Flores or like coaches are, I wish he would just be a little more like, stern with the players and like aggressive and all those things. And Mike McDaniel is not like that. Very human, obviously human reactions in every single way. Takes advantage of the opportunities he's given. And I just feel, and from what reports I've been telling those in the media and those on Twitter and everywhere else in the world that follow this Miami Dolphins team, it's a great feeling that Mike McDaniel might just go through his extension. Again, contract extension through 2026. He probably does stay next year, and so does Tua Tagovailoa as well next year. Dolphins are not looking to be tanking. That team that played that Sunday does not look like they're tanking. Does not look like they've given up much. So Dolphins potentially could begin on a roll here again on November 16th. That Sunday upcoming, 9:30 a.m. here. Probably going to be in the middle of the afternoon or whatever in Spain against Washington Commanders. 2, 3, and 7 teams. And I'm probably the third time this year the Dolphins face a team who have the exact same record as them. And I think that was between the Jets and then, of course, the Ravens game where they got basically like kicked out of the water on Thursday Night Football. Might be a little different this time. Who knows? Might be a little different this time. But with that being said, let's just go through some NFL scores real quick. Going to be a little bit of a lightning round here. Colts Falcons, that game going on in Berlin. First game ever in Germany. Colts winning it in overtime. Jonathan Taylor with the day as the Colts win it 31-25. Taylor, 244 yards, 3 touchdowns for the Colts in OT win over Atlanta. And then the Jets, their second win of the year against the low-life Browns, winning it 27-20 at home. Texans, an insane meltdown for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jaguars leading this game with basically seconds left. Texans able to go out of their way as backup quarterback Davis Mills overcomes a 19-point deficit in the fourth quarter, stunning the Jags 36-29. And again, that being a Jaguars team that just announced that knee surgery for Travis Hunter is conclusive and he's going to be gone for the whole year. So that is the Jags team a little bit on the downward. Pats on top of Buccaneers, really the game of the week if you want to look at standing wise and what things can look down the road. AFC, NFC wise, Pats winning at 28-23 on the road against Tampa Bay. The Bears on top of the Giants. We're going to go into a little more Giants talk before we end this podcast, of course. So I'll go revisit that game later on. Ravens, Kings. Ravens taking advantage. Lamar Jackson finally back from injury. Is 2-0 since being back from injury. So Ravens slowly climbing back. That's their 5th win of the year. Saints, Panthers. New Orleans showcasing themselves, showing out. Rookie Tyler Show throwing for 2 touchdowns, earning his first win in the NFL. Congrats to the kid. Well, not really the kid. The guy's older than me. Went through 6 years in college football at Louisville. Either way, Seahawks in a dominant fashion look to be the team to beat right now in the NFC over the Cardinals. 44-22. Wasn't even a contest for that one. And that's a game where they have Joey Brissett as a starter. Undisputed. Again, Kyler Murray dealing with his own injuries. Lions over the Commanders. We just talked about it. Another 44-22 game. I don't know how many times it happens twice. 44-22 might be the first time. Maybe a scoregami. Need scoregami to really boot into that. But Lions and Commanders, Lions on top of the Commanders. Low life, Washington going to Spain. Rams, 49ers, not even close. Rams on top on the road in San Fran. And Chargers, Steelers, we talked about it a little bit. Steelers just getting like razor bladed, shaved around. Aaron Rodgers could not find the end zone at all through a lot of it. DK Metcalf was locked down the entire way. But great game defensively, obviously, for the Chargers. Justin Herbert, he was there doing his thing. This is actually the second biggest deficit, and I mean that for the Steelers franchise history against the Chargers. The second worst loss against the Los Angeles Chargers, formerly the San Diego Chargers, for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So not looking too good right now for Pittsburgh. Again, a team that's trying to push for, what's really hopes to be with all the veteran leadership that they have on that team, a deep playoff push, maybe even something to win the AFC. Who knows? And then, of course, Monday Night Football, a slugfest, 10-7 win for the Eagles. This was like, again, Jalen Phillips, productive debut, no doubt about it. But Jordan Love, I'm looking at the stats as we speak right now. This is a game in Lambeau. 176 yards, not even a single touchdown pass. Barely 5 yards per pass. Apologies, my time right there on a tight schedule here. And overall, the Packers, a lot of questions about them at 5-3-1 with a one-time against the Cowboys. LaFleur, head coach for the Green Bay Packers, was asked about job security of what he looks to play for, and which is also insane to think that we're going to talk about LaFleur as a potential fired coach in the NFL. What has he shown that gets him fired? I don't think anything. But who does show a lot, which got him fired, was Brian Daboll. Daboll, the former coordinator for the Buffalo Bills, who took the New York Giants job, has ended off getting fired after the loss against Chicago. And that was a game where a lot of people saw that Brian Daboll was emotional on the sidelines, a little bit of emotion shown in his face as he was leaving the field. Basically, I'm pretty sure he knew the writing on the wall after that game. He gets fired the next day, basically. And for the Giants, it's back to the carousel. Who do you even look at now as a potential head coach? A lot of people talk about Don Shula's lineage, who I believe is a DC right now for the Los Angeles Rams. A lot of people talk about maybe the college route. Lane Kiffin has been put in so many different places. Potentially LSU head coach. Potentially UF head coach. Potentially he could probably even be, making your shakes at Shake Shack. Because I think every single person wants him for a job at this point. Maybe even president. Who knows? But for the Giants, going towards now an interim head coach for the rest of the year. Jackson Dart's first year in the NFL. And throughout the year, it definitely showed that Brian Daboll is really coaching for his job. Russell Wilson comes in, is just sluggishly, playing football, trying deep passes. If he doesn't have anything, he just throws it away. Brian Daboll's I got to show them something. So that's probably the reason why we saw Jackson Dart early on in this year. Who knows where the interim head coach position will be? Maybe Russell Wilson gets back to get first team reps. Who knows? Would I bat my eyes? Not really. Just makes the game less entertaining with Russell Wilson out there, who's basically tarnished a little bit of his Hall of Fame career. Still Hall of Famer, not first ballot. But now Brian Daboll out of a job. And the first picture we see of Brian Daboll outside of his home in the snow, a Penn State Nittany Lions sweater on. And I kid you not, if it's a foreshadow that he's going to go to but coach on the collegiate level for Penn State, I don't think anybody would like that at Penn State. Would it make sense? It would definitely make sense. We've definitely seen some guys go from NFL to college. In most recent years, Matt Rule with Nebraska, who just got an extension with Cornhuskers, he's been pretty okay and successful recruiting the program. On field is going to take some time, obviously, in their conference, but With Penn State, it could work. It could work. I can see Brable go there. It could work. But yes, so Brian Daboll have a job. Chris Greer out of a job last week. And the Dolphins are back to winning games. And against AFC East opponents. The only team we have yet to beat from our own division is New England, which, of course, will be like the last game of the year. So that's going to do it for this episode of Sideline. I want to thank you again for joining into the podcast for this week. And don't forget, follow the other platforms here on Plug Talk Sports and Plug Talk Sports social media. We'll see you guys next week, every Tuesday, for Sidelines.